and let's get started.
Sure.
I don't. This is my first one I'm doing. I don't know how it quite works, so
Yeah.
we'll see how this goes. But anyway, I'll introduce yourself, Randy, and then I'll introduce myself, how we connected, and we'll get to the topic of the day.
Wonderful. Would you like me to go first?
Yeah, go first.
Sure. So, Randy Bernard, founder, CEO of Bernard Financial Coaching, Budgeting and Beyond. Um, I am a financial coach and, started this business about a year and a half ago. It's been incredible the amount of people I've been able to interact with, help serve the communities that I've been a part of and been invited into. So, doing something like this is exciting because there's so many topics in the financial space, of course, that people may not know where to find answers. So, I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you, Francis.
Awesome, great. And I'm Francis Nduati. I'm also a financial coach. I do this as a side hustle. I've got a day job, but my focus mostly is on being debt free. And I talk a lot about zero-based budgeting, and because that's what I've practiced pretty much about 10 years, for almost 10 years, me and my wife, and it's worked really good for us. But again, my goal is to help people get debt free. We are not quite there yet, but we are very inching very close with a few things that are on our list for the next 5 years, and we feel really great about that. And Substack has been a great platform to share and to connect with people like you, Randy. And it's been really wonderful. And the way we connected, I'll talk about, is Substack, right?
Yeah,
Email, message you, and we've had a few phone calls to learn how you budget, to learn how you coach people. It's a little bit different, but I think we're all on the same. The objective is the same,
yeah,
pretty much. Yeah.
yeah. It is. Once you have an aligned values and more or less mission, it makes it easy to figure out how to get there. We all take different paths, right? But that's the beauty in it, and bringing the humanity into it.
All right. So for today, we'll focus on that, right? Um,
Sure.
how you, we all have some sort of debt, and how you've handled yours, how I've handled mine, and throw in some tips for people that are watching here, and hopefully it's helpful for them. So go fast, maybe, and we'll try to make this session about half an hour, right?
Sure.
So maybe you can start off with the kind of debt that you've had now or in the past, and how you handled it.
Totally. Oh man. Yeah, it's interesting. The word debt brings up so many different emotions for different people, right? Like all the conversations that I have.
Yeah.
So I definitely recognize, the way I interact with it is different, not just because I'm a financial coach, but also because I'm debt free. Debt free, everything except the mortgage. And I'm very, very excited about paying off the mortgage too. That's a separate conversation. I'll keep things
Yeah,
short, but Francis, if you have other questions, obviously dig deeper.
absolutely.
So um, m- my wife and I um, had paid off all of our debt after we finished after we got married back in 2021. It took us 2.5 years. We had 135,000 about in total. It was like 135,700 something dollars. And when we started, we were making about $75,000.
Yeah.
And by the time we ended, we ended up making a lot more. All sorts of side hustles, me picking back up bartending, just really getting after it. I mean, we made it. We started when we were dating, and then we got engaged through it, and then we got married. So we even saved up for a wedding and cash flowed a $16,000 wedding.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah. So all in all, when we look back, I see people's faces light up when I tell that story. But in the middle of it, it didn't feel like we were doing anything crazy. It just felt like
Yeah.
this is it. This is what we're doing right now, and it's just you and me, and let's get after it. And we learned so much about ourselves. We learned so much about each other, to the point now where the things that we come up right or challenges are more or less easier because we've
Hmm.
gone through something so hard. Everything's
Correct.
a different type of hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where we are now, and very much looking forward to the day when we get to finally cut off that last gold link, because we have, a paper link of chains for
Yeah.
every $2,000 increment of our mortgage. And so we've always made it fun. Before it was coloring in a thermometer, now it's this long link of chains. And that our
Oh, nice.
kids get to cut off every link every month. So yeah, it's good.
And how long do you think it'll take you guys to get together paid off?
Great question. So the original goal, my oldest son is 3 years old. The
Uh-huh.
original goal is to have it paid off before he graduates elementary school.
Okay,
Yep. And so, if we
that's
think
aggressive.
yeah, it's aggressive. It'll be about 7 more years. And right now
Okay.
the forecast is saying I'm ahead of schedule, which is great. Um, but anything could happen, right? Like 7 years is quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
And in the middle of that, we went ahead and refinanced to a 15 year, which I never thought we would be able to do.
Hmm.
So many different financial folks in the space recommend that. When we bought the house, it was a 30 year, and the rates just dropped low enough
Okay.
that it made sense. And of course, ideally your income continues to increase over time. So it's been good that we bought very frugally when we first bought this house. So by the time our income came up and the rates came down, it made sense, and we're committed to it. So yeah,
Good. And really, like, the thing about having goals, like a stretch goal like that,
yeah,
it seems it seems such a long time, right? But like when you have a perspective of the 7 years is gonna pass anyway, right? You might as
right,
well stick to something.
right,
Um, and I think for a married couple like you, it helps you to go after something for such a long time. It helps the marriage. I mean, I think it does a
yeah,
lot in terms of, okay, apart from just raising kids,
sure,
which is our responsibility. These are the things that we can go after together, accomplish it, and it just that's a building block.
right, yeah.
All right, that's pretty cool. And so, what are some of the tricks that, or not even tricks? What are some of the things that you and your wife have found useful in attaining these, or even achieving the past things that you guys have gone after in terms of debt?
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful question, because uh, I don't get that question nearly as much as I just kind of mention it with my clients or those
Yeah.
that I interact with. But the reality is, it comes down to a few basic fundamentals. Sometimes I think it's a quote by Tiger Woods, and he says, "You never, no matter how much mastery you obtain in any subject or any skill, right? Like golf, for example, you never lose sight of the basics." And the
Yeah.
basics for me, in my practice and in my life, are budget, be consistent, and remember your why. And not necessarily in that order, probably flipped it in terms of the order, but um, we're going to be consistent because we're habitual creatures anyway. So you might as well have the right habits that keep
Hmm.
you going towards the direction that you want to go. But you have to set the direction you want to go. And so as soon as you set your sights on something, it's like once you have a really good reason of why you want to get there, we have a myriad of reasons of why we want to pay off the mortgage early. It may not make
Yeah.
all the financial sense from a paper standpoint, but in terms of when we lay our head down at night, it's going to make a big difference, right? So having a really strong why, recognizing that to be consistent, what are the things that would prevent us from being consistent, and trying not to let those things step into our mental space or our physical space. And the last thing, of course, budgeting, right? For some people, if they don't have that habit already, or if they're not sure what they're doing, or if it's not working for them, then that's a
Yeah.
huge opportunity. Of course, that's a whole conversation. But once you have a system that's working for you, and you recognize that you can live off less than you make, and it allows you to continue being consistent, and you have the right systems, it's more or less easy. It's less of a this is a thing that I have to do, and more of a
Mhm.
I can't finish the month before doing it for the next month kind of thing. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are it, it, that makes it a lot easier in the why, right? Just always having that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a clarity point
Yeah.
for you and your partner, right? Your wife,
Right.
right? In that it's no longer a question of you don't have to question yourself why when it's already set up.
Mhm.
And if you mentioned that you gotta leave, on less than you make.
Yep.
And the question becomes, okay, so why? Okay, this is the reason why we are doing it because we
Yeah.
want to achieve this, right?
Right.
So that's really great. What style of so there's two ways that I know of attacking debt.
Sure.
So there's a snowball and there's the avalanche, right?
Right.
Um, you can probably talk a little bit of the style that you use, or maybe as a financial coach, right?
Yeah.
What do those two mean?
Yeah. 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 So let's define those a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So avalanche method is a really, really popular method. People may not recognize it by its name as much as they do the spirit of what it how you the strategy of going about paying off the debt. Meaning if you have 10 different debts, maybe six, seven of them are different student loans, 5,000, 4,000, $3,000 balances, but they each have different interest rates,
Yeah.
3%, 4%, 5%. Plus your credit card debt, plus maybe car debt, whatever it might be. You basically take the one that has the highest interest rate, and you pay that one off first, and you attack it aggressively in the ways of I'm going to try and get back as much of my money and save myself from paying as much interest.
Yeah.
Now, that sounds really good on paper, right? But psychologically, we're missing the emotional and behavioral and psychological piece when it comes to paying off money, and that's what makes it personal. Whereas the snowball method is kind of flopped, where you may have all these different balances of $20,000 to $5,000 in different interest rates, but
Hmm.
instead you say, I'm going to pay off the lowest balance first
Yeah.
and work your way up, therefore creating a snowball effect slash momentum. Um, and what that one does, right, you may end up paying a little bit more in interest, but what you gain is actually a lot of, again, momentum in the ways of, okay, I just finished that one thing. I can check that box. I can cross that off my list.
Hmm.
Now, what's the next thing? Especially now that you've got a little bit more of your paycheck back, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think you asked about, you know, maybe from my experience, but also with my coaching clients, because in the last year and a half and coaching, I think I'm up to 27 folks. Some of them, families and whatnot.
Right.
Um, Everyone's always gone for the snowball method, despite wanting to come in wanting to do the avalanche method. And the
Hmm.
reason is, when you look at the data, you may not end up saving that much money on interest.
True.
Maybe you have $100,000 of total debt that you want to pay off, and maybe you end up saving, let's call it $5,000 of interest.
Yeah.
But the real question is, if you flip that script, right, would you pay $5,000 to bet against yourself to actually pay off the debt? Because that's what it's about. What's the likelihood of you actually finishing across the finish line?
Yes.
And if I were to tell you, if you were a client, if I were to tell you that the data is stacked against the avalanche method and it's in favor of the snowball method, then you would probably make that bet of $5,000 and saying, I'd rather be on the more preferable side of what actually could happen, if that makes sense,
Yeah. Yeah. And what works?
and what works.
Correct. And really, like you at the beginning of that, you said it's about behavior. It's about it's personal, right?
Yeah.
And it really, I favor small wins to build towards a bigger win.
Right.
And I use snowball, right? It's I look at we've looked at what data we have and said, okay, what's the smallest? Start with that.
Right.
And as soon as we're able to pay that, we do a little bit celebration, buy confetti and just do like a confetti thing.
Yeah.
So but it's a behavior thing where you say, okay, if I can achieve that, these the next debt of $5,000, I can achieve it. It's possible.
Right.
But starting off with, if you have a mortgage and that's your highest percentage, and it's a ton of money, let's say $200,000, the debt, the cards are stacked against you. It's
Yeah.
not. It's gonna be impossible if you haven't had any wins in the back, in the back of, as your tailwinds to push you forward.
Right. Now, the other thing too, which, one thing that I love about, you know, having this practice and getting to interact with so many different households and individuals is that I get the nuanced questions and I get the nuanced situations.
Yeah.
So I've actually had a handful of clients, one currently, who I encourage debate, right? I encourage pushback. It's not just Randy's strategy or budgeting and beyond strategy. This is a framework. This is what I've seen work.
Hmm.
What do you think about it? What can we do to collaborate? And so, even more recently, I had a client that said, um, he had, I think it was 10 or 11 different Fed loans all stacked up, $3,000, $4,000 each.
Yeah.
But he had a credit card balance, and it was like, I think we started at 21,000. And so, of course, the Fed loans, being a much smaller balance, we'd say, like, let's go ahead and stack all those up before we get to the credit card. But he had such a fiery disdain for his credit card because of
Hmm.
how much he knew that bad habits had got him to where he was. And so he
Correct.
said, Randy, I really, really want to pay this off. Like, how do we get there faster? And of course, one perspective is get through all your student loans, let that be the reason why you get through it, and then we get to the credit card.
Yeah.
But what we actually settled on, because he talked about, his history with his credit card, how he got to those balances and all that good stuff. What we said instead was like, okay, let's break it up into meaningful chunks. Let's say, just like my mortgage, let's say it's $2,000 increments for your credit card, and we'll work
Hmm.
that in to your debt payoff plan. So
Yeah.
the first student loan was $1,600. We paid that one off. Then we did $2,000 off the credit card. A little bit of celebration. It felt good. He's never been below $20,000 on his balance in so long. Um, and then we moved over to the next student loan debt, and then we said, okay, now let's make the next credit card milestone $2,500 because it's a little bit bigger than the last student loan debt, right? So we just keep
Yeah.
moving, and the goalposts is still there, but he feels the wins on both sides. So I thought that was really cool, and I've had a couple situations like that.
That's good, man. And what people don't realize also with the snowball is that once you're done with paying the first debt, you take that amount and you add it towards the next one,
Exactly.
right? So it really just builds up, builds up,
Yeah.
builds up. So by the time you're getting to the big debt that you have, your student loan, your credit card, your
Yeah.
mortgage, you end up you're paying with what you've been paying from the rest,
Right.
right? And that really just is a snowball effect, pretty much, and that's why it's
Totally.
called like that. Let's go to the next question here from our list is how has that, and this is really speaking to people that are in partnership or marriages when they are dealing with debt, right? You
Yep.
bring your own baggage with your debt from your college. She brings or he brings their own debt from whatever. How do you attack this together? Do you do it jointly? Do you do it separately? And again, this is not there's not particularly a right way, is what works for you. This is
Sure.
personal, this is all behavior. What do you think? What have you seen work for
Yeah.
you and for, you know?
Yeah. 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 It's a great scenario because it happens all the time. So what I end up finding is, let's just say two separate, very simplistic camps. One, we might have two individuals that are dating together. They may be living together,
Mm,
but not actually married. And so they may have similar goals of wanting to pay off debt. That was actually my wife and I, like
mhm,
many, many years ago, and a couple years before we got married, we both said that we wanted to pay off our debt, but we chose, because we weren't married, that we are individuals, but we can still encourage and hold each other accountable. And so for that scenario, same thing that I experience is the same thing that I coach other people on, is push each other, have your own individual why. You're both individuals, right? And if marriage is in your cards, then let that be something that then you guys can come together and work on together. But for all intents and purposes, it gets really, really dangerous when you start leaning over and paying off someone else's debt.
yeah.
Unless it's a true gift and you are actually capable financially and willing
Hmm.
to part with that money that you're going to contribute, then it's not your money to give at that moment, right? And so
True.
that's one piece. But for my couples that are married, they're committed, they're legally one. It becomes really challenging. It doesn't matter what the ratio is of who has more debt when they came into the marriage or what have you. The
Yeah.
idea is
Yeah.
that if we want to do something different, we have to think differently. And to think differently is quite challenging. So I always love to challenge people in the ways of, you already made the decision. You already made the decision of how you got that debt. Let that
Yeah.
be the past. You can't change the
Mm.
past. We know that. I wish I had a time machine, but probably for good reasons we don't, right?
Yeah, water under the bridge.
So let that be something that you learned about how you got there so that you don't repeat it and that you and your significant other can align on that. You
Yeah,
both have a story to tell there. But the important part is let's live in the present and the future. What are we fighting for the future? Because together as one, we are going to act as a team and move towards where we want to go.
exactly.
Right. So it's like whether something happened to me or I did something and then something happened to me, it already happened. I already have the scar from it,
Yeah.
but now I want to make sure that I don't get other scars. And then I also want to make sure that I'm not scarring other people. There's a whole lot of things, but the idea is that I learned something and now I'm going to go do a different action to get to somewhere different. So, um, strategy wise, it's more or less easy, but it's always the mindset that is the biggest challenge, I think, when it comes to paying off debt, especially in married couples. If there's any sort of rub, so to speak, when it comes to like how they got there, and we're always thinking about it in the past, and that's more of the conversation, really, because as soon as we
Mhm.
get past the mindset, then everything else in terms of how we pay off debt and being consistent is a little bit easier. If that answers
Oh,
your
great.
question.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's great advice there. And I like that you touched on on individuals that are not committed in a marriage yet, or that sets a good foundation. When you are able to talk about finances, you're able to come up with plans and goals together,
Exactly.
knowing that knowing that there's no commitment for each other, right? And one of you can walk away at any time. But having that is a great way of communicating and understanding each other and just having that financial foundation that
Yeah.
spills over to other things too.
It's all part of, regardless of where you're going with your significant other, is you can't. I think I had just posted it recently, but as a couple, married or not married, you can only go so long without talking about money. So you
Yeah,
might as well break down the barriers and break down the walls and talk about it early, especially if you have goals attached to it.
yeah. And I wish my wife and I did that early before we even got married because the first couple of years were rough
Mm,
financially,
sure.
and we didn't have a great background in terms of knowing what to do. But I think sticking it out and starting to have goals of how we're going to manage these aspects of our life helped a lot. Um, and my my advice to others is start early, as early as possible, just
Right.
like how you guys did it, as early as possible,
Right.
and have that discussion, be in alignment. And you could have different mindsets and different goals, I mean different ideas of where you want to be in the next 5 years, but like be on the same page in terms of, okay, this is where you want to be, this is how I see finances.
Yeah.
How can we combine these to be one thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
The longer you delay a conversation, is you end up just delaying her. That's the way I kind of think about it.
exactly, yeah.
And not everyone is very easy to go into a uncomfortable or harder conversation sometimes, and it's not always that it has to be either of those two, but sometimes that's how it feels to people. But sometimes you end up just delaying the hurt, and the hurt looks different than you ever expected, just like you said,
it
right? So
it doesn't get easier.
it doesn't get easier, unfortunately. Not.
Do you um do you recommend investing as you're paying off your debt?
Yeah, so this is a man, such a great such a great topic to talk about. So my recommendation would be generally no.
Hmm.
Big asterisk because it totally depends on your situation, and I think that's part of what makes it beneficial to go talk to someone in the financial space, especially someone who's fighting for you and your why, not just
Hmm.
fighting for your finances or fighting for your investments or fighting for your retirement. Those are all different things. There's different professions for that, right? Um, my answer generally is no, doing both. And the reason
Hmm.
is because something happens when you're able to throw everything you've got at one thing at a
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
It's kind of like snowball effect mentally and like psychologically, but the difference is that um, you gain so much more traction. So it's like do, as an individual, if I were to paint an analogy, if I say I want to run a marathon at the end of this year, am I also going to go take up rock climbing or powerlifting? Like,
True.
maybe I'll be able to do all three things, but
Yeah.
I definitely won't be able to do the run the marathon as well as I
Right.
did if I just threw everything at it, right? And trained appropriately every day and ate right and slept right. And so sometimes what we end up finding is that like our intentions are really good, but instead we actually fight against ourselves in what we say is a priority or is actually the most important thing. Now there comes a time when you do multiple things at a time, right? Like um, after you pay off the debt, after you have an emergency fund, then maybe perhaps you are saving up for retirement and you're also investing separately into non-retirement accounts and you're paying off the mortgage and maybe you're contributing to, if you have kids, like future investments and what have you,
Right.
multiple things. But the
Hmm.
difference is you're not fighting for your life in the ways of putting a buffer between you and your life
Yeah.
when you're paying off debt and you're saving up for emergency fund versus these are all gravy, on the biscuits, so to speak, where it's
Yeah.
like I've already done the right things to protect myself between me and life, but now I get to have my money work for me and work for others because I'm serving others in the other ways. So I think when you're in that survival mode of paying off debt aggressively and saving up for emergency fund, that's where everything goes into one goal and you get after it
Okay.
as soon as possible.
Yeah. I like that, and it's true that especially this is a stressor, or it's like when you're paying off all this debt, it's not you're giving up a bunch of stuff, right?
Right.
And trying to do other things will just pull your energy and your time and your commitment to the other thing. But I think the way I look at it, if I my advice is normally the least that you can do maybe is like a 401k.
Sure.
If you're in
Like a
employment
batch.
and you're, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's fair.
so if your employer is offering it, because
Yeah.
if you're and they are matching,
Right.
my recommendation, at least do the 401k to not leave the money on the table,
Sure. Sure.
right? Because some of these goals of paying off your debt are
Right.
years long um,
Right. Yeah.
goals, right? So you don't want to be working for an organization that's matching for 5 years and you
Yeah.
leave all that money. So do that at least,
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
then that's a kind, and just know that 3, 4, 5% of your money is going towards that. Set
Yeah.
it, have some knowledge of what you want to invest in, set
Sure.
it, forget it, and then focus on paying
What you have
your
left.
debt. Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. We have so many situations with clients where, I generally won't recommend they look at paring back their contributions to retirement
Hmm.
until we have a really good debt payoff plan and they see the target date. And
Hmm.
then they ask the question, how do we get this date lower? Then we look at, do you want to increase the size of your shovel, decrease your expenses, or something else? And that something else is usually where, okay, how much are you actually contributing to retirement? How much are you actually putting into your stock purchase plan or whatever it might be? Because what I don't want to do is that is such a very committed choice of whether or not to pare it back or to stop it altogether.
Okay.
At some point, you have to realize like, how long is my debt payoff plan? And how much do I want to attack this with ferocity? That I can't instill in anyone, but it's until you ask the right questions where it's like, that is a strategy if that's right for you. And I tend to agree with you, right? In the sense of like, don't leave the money on the table. However, I will
Hmm.
also say my wife and I, we both stopped contributing to our 401ks completely
Did
because
you?
we also recognized that our debt payoff plan was only 3 years and ended up
Okay.
taking less time. And
Yeah.
so it's like in those 3 years, we're going to pause this completely. And when we get everything set up and when we have the emergency fund all set up, we're going to end up putting 15+%, right?
Okay. Yeah. So you can recover the time lost. Yeah.
Recover. So in the grand scheme, and we were also younger. So in our mid to late 20s, it's like, what's 3 years of not contributing 3%
Yeah.
of our income? Yes, there's a huge forecast for that. But at the end of our life, our goal is not to have way more money than we need. It's to have a decent amount of money that we don't have to worry about retirement too much.
Correct.
And every single time I talk to my financial planner now, who's helping us manage our retirement accounts, we're always ahead of schedule. And so it's like, if I were to go back, I would make that decision all over again.
Correct. And it's good that you mentioned that your situation, you guys started young, right?
Mm.
Because like again, this is a personal, this is based on your situation where you are.
Yeah,
Because if
totally.
you're in your mid 30s or 40s, you gotta
It's different.
evaluate that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah.
And like when you're young, you can be aggressive after the fact
Right.
when you get back to it. So yeah, okay, good. But this is why I like having these discussions
Yeah,
with
me too.
other people because you see different perspectives, and
Yeah.
I think this is very it's useful for the people that we're creating to just know that okay, there's a lot
Yeah.
of things that you gotta consider. It's
Yeah.
not a black and white thing.
No, and that's one thing that I see a lot, is that so often, if I just have a random conversation with someone, in a coffee shop, for example, and they ask a question similar to that, it they may even go as far as saying, like, I threw it into Chat GPT and this is the answer it gave me, or I saw this 1 2 minute reel and this is the answer that it gave me. And it's like,
Yeah,
it is speaking to the masses. It doesn't know your situation. And that's the benefit of working with a professional, is that we get to look at all the things. We get
yeah.
to ask the right questions about you and what matters to you, so that we can make the best recommendation based off what we've also seen. Right. And so, there's an element that's always missing when it comes to, I need generalized advice for me and
Yeah,
my situation, and especially in the financial space, which is the backbone of how we live life. So, yeah,
and I don't want to lose the point that you are a financial advisor and you have a financial advisor, right?
exactly.
So
Every
just like
coach, every person deserves to be coached. Every coach needs a coach,
yeah,
and
just like a doctor needs a doctor.
exactly,
So
exactly.
let's look at the last thing. I think right now
Sure,
we are at our 34 minute mark. Maybe we get done in the next 6 minutes.
sure.
Let's talk about earnings. You know, make an income with paying debt. Don't forget also to go. My the way I look at it, you know, you start off with X amount and it can only cover so much.
Mhm.
Um, that which is a good focus. But
Right.
again, inflation, life happens.
Yeah.
Think about your income and how you can increase it.
Yeah, so that is quite the challenge. Again, it's similar to what we were just talking about, where it's very specific to your skills, your gifts, what you excel at, where you gain energy. Like, there's a myriad. It's like a cocktail of, like, who is the individual, how do they best show up in the world, and what does the world need from that individual, right?
Yeah.
Um, I wrote about it here on Substack about the essence of work. I put it very simply that why we work is just as important as how we work. Um, but when it comes to creating an income and creating earnings, especially, to provide for yourself, to provide for others, once you align on what are the things that come really naturally and easy for me, I feel like the money will come. And
Hmm.
maybe that's me being more optimistic, but I can only speak from the lens of what I've experienced, and also through the lens of what some of my clients have experienced, especially those that have changed industries, that have changed occupations, that have moved between different employers. Every time I give that perspective, it changes how they approach even in an interview. And at the end of the day, no matter what technology comes out, it's still a people to people serving industry, any industry, right? So,
Correct.
as long as there's another person on the other side, there's another person that needs to say, this is a good trade of our resources as a business. This is a good trade of my time. And I'm willing to risk some level of risk on this person because I think they're the person for the job. So, what I tend to focus with people, and it's not going to say career coaching on my website, but I have had a lot of conversations about careers, because me, myself, before starting this business, I moved between 5 different industries. I
Hmm.
started as a mining engineer, then I was a civil engineer, then I was a project manager in IT, then I was a project manager and program manager in supply chain and marketing and data science, and then coaching other project managers. And so, like, if you follow the breadcrumbs of, like, what actually gains you energy, I tend to believe that the money will come.
Correct.
Now, when it comes to fighting and finding the right role, because you actually have a budget and you know what deficit of income that you need, then it becomes a two-part question. One, do I actually need a bigger shovel? Or two, do I need to minimize my expenses?
Yeah.
But I think the nature of your question, it depends on, and you can expand it. It depends on if you already know, okay, I need to make $5,000 a month, and right now I make $3,000. How do I just increase my shovel? It it does depend. Do you take a risk of spending your time or
Mhm.
resources to further education to get to that next jump if you need it, or is it just the wrong employer? Is it the wrong industry? A number of things come
Yeah.
into play.
And this is, I feel like this is a broader topic that we can probably, hit it on in a different live session.
Yeah, we could talk about 30
Um,
minutes just that alone. Yeah,
Correct.
easy.
But I like that. I like how you laid it out in terms of, I started here, went here, went here, went here, just following that breadcrumb of what I'm interested in. Um, and the reason why I like it is because sometimes you might think this is your passion, right? But you don't allow yourself to grow
Right.
and change that, right?
Yes.
And in terms of debt, you gotta look at it and say, all right, I'm starting here. I like what I'm doing. What I'm doing in 2 years, am I gonna like it? I don't know. We'll find out.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
open to look for something else, and I'm hoping that something else is gonna be a little bit of an
Yeah.
income change towards an increase in an income, not really necessarily
Yeah.
decreasing it. Yeah,
Yeah. Definitely. People. I don't know how often in the career space, like the career coaching and career counseling, what have you, in that space, how often it comes up. But one thing I talk about with people is like their energy that they put out, right? Like I generally know if it's going to be a great coaching client relationship just by their charisma and their excitement, so to speak, not to work with me, but just to get to somewhere different than they have been. I
yeah,
don't think it's much different when you're interviewing someone and talking to someone about possibly hiring them. Because if they feel like that's the right role and that's the right direction that they need to go, they're going to have a completely different energy that will separate them from everyone else that hiring manager may talk to.
very true,
And it's
very
it,
true.
it's less about what's on your paper, what's on your resume, digital paper, whatever, and more about how you're showing up to that conversation. So yeah, hopefully that helps
Nice.
some.
Yeah, that helps. How do you see, and these last, just, maybe a few sentences. How
Yeah.
do you see repaying debt towards building wealth?
Hmm. Like the relationship between the two.
Yes.
Yeah. So the studies will say, one, you can actually find almost any piece of information to support whatever argument you want to make. But if I look at some of the biggest collection of people and data that show what it takes to even get to a millionaire,
Hmm.
right? Those that have paid off debt early in their younger years, or just as soon as they realize that it was a priority for them, tend to get to the millionaire status quicker than those that have leveraged debt or leveraged borrowing to then go invest or anything of that nature, or any
Yeah.
sort of tax strategy to reduce the amount of taxes and all this other things. Like in my mind, the simpler that you make your strategy, the easier it is to actually act on said strategy and be consistent at your strategy. Therefore, the easier it is to actually get to wealth building.
Yeah.
So, one nugget for people that I love giving is that if you look at the top three occupations for those that are millionaires today, teachers are one of the top ones, K through
Hmm.
12 teachers. And I think that's crazy because predominantly their income being state funded is not very high, right? And so, but there's an element of them being incredibly consistent. They tend to stay in their occupation some of the longest careers in
Okay.
the country, right? And
Hmm.
once they set up their retirement and their 403(b)s or whatever, they just continue to invest and continue to put money into it. They don't think
Yeah.
otherwise. They don't increase their lifestyle. Everything stays really consistent, and so they end up getting to a level of wealth building that others may not even see, even though they would have had double the income.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really incredible. So that's where my mind typically goes is when it comes to specifically paying off debt, just reducing um, your liability, therefore protecting your own headspace, therefore also getting as much back on your paycheck, allows you to set up the right systems to be consistent going forward.
That is very true. I love that. And those are I call them the frugal millionaires that we don't
Yeah,
talk about enough.
yeah,
We look at the ones that are in the media taking all kind of risk and leveraging
right.
debt,
Yeah,
and that's the sweet stories that can sell. But the frugal millionaires, their stories are boring. Our stories are boring,
they are.
and the
Yeah, there's
strategy is simple enough that it seems to be unbelievable, or it's just
right.
not interesting.
No, there's no TV shows about them.
No, no, no. Good. Plug in your newsletter. Let people subscribe to you
Yeah.
and your website. Go for it, Randy.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely go check us out, Budgeting and Beyond. Um, Here on Substack, I tend to write a lot of stories, both from my lens, financial related, non-financial related. They all tend to weave together on who we're becoming and why we do what we do, not just with
Yeah,
our money, but how we interact with others, our relationships, our own self growth. And so you can find that all here on Substack. Um, my website, bernardfinancialcoaching.com, is a mouthful, but there you can also find more testimonials. I have a few 4 or 5 minute testimonials from different clients telling their story. So hopefully you
yeah,
hear something that resonates with you. And if you want to work with us, we do one-on-one coaching. We do a course that is now live, which is great for the hybrid, kind of self-led. I don't have a lot of time, but I know I need to get on a budget and be consistent and be held accountable. And
yeah.
so even that course allows you to interact with a coach like me. We're expanding, potentially having another coach, and so between us, we want to be able to engage with those that are going through the course. But regardless, we have live events here in Substack, outside of Substack, where we talk to others outside of the financial space to see the through lines of where is it that I need the most help and how does this relate to my finances? Because that also needs help, if that makes sense. So definitely reach out. I'd love to chat with anyone. Love having a virtual coffee.
Awesome. Perfect. Yep. Reach out to Bernard. Great guy. Speaking to you. We've had a few calls, and you actually your communication on budgeting and money management, you simplify it, which is great, and
Good.
it's not always. You look at a lot of people don't like math. Well, I don't want to say a lot of people, but for people that
Sure.
numbers scares them,
Right.
it's having it simplified makes it a lot easier to digest.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Randy.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I'm hoping we'll have more live videos like these and just
Yeah.
keep discussing these topics. This is our first one, and it's been great.
Yeah. Thank you, Francis. Thanks for inviting me. This has been good. You know me, I love having good conversations. So this is right up my alley.
All right. Awesome. Hey, we'll talk later. Take care.
Sounds
Have a
good.
great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
You too. Bye now.
All right, bye.